Welcome to Talking Buffalo, featuring conversations with guests from around the world of sports, media, pop culture, and all things Buffalo. With your host, Patrick Moran.
All right, what is going on, everybody? How you doing? Welcome to another episode of Talking Buffalo, your weekday daily driver for Buffalo sports talk and more. My name is Patrick Moran. Big thank you, as always, everybody out there, for watching, for listening, following, subscribing. I do appreciate y'all very much. If you happen to be watching this on the video side, we are live here on a Monday night. I am joined by my buddy down in Queens, New York, Joe from Queens. What's going on, man? How you doing?
I'm all right. I'm tired, as always. I'm going to crack a beer. You know, I've actually cut down on my beer, which I'm sure no one really cares about. So I'm on this is not a sponsorship segment here, but I am on this thing called Wegovy. Unfortunately, I'm a little bit overweight. Not that much, but I have a fatty liver, which I'm sure has something to do with this. But and they put me on this thing called Wegovy. It's like a shot you take once a week, and it like takes away your cravings for food. And it has worked, I would say. Like, I don't have the same cravings as I used to have. Mm-hmm. But the problem is, and I've lost some weight, but I feel like I should have lost more, is that I still I'm lazy to cook. Whereas before I would cook, and now I'm just like, I don't need to cook. Let me just get something to like grab. Like, oh, here's something sweet. Here's some yogurt. I don't know. Like, just something that's like processed meat. Like, I've been eating too many sandwiches where I'm eating like turkey sandwiches, which aren't really good for you. I mean, even though you think it is, but it's processed meat, etc. You know, but what it does work. It does definitely stop your craving. So I don't really drink. I was just thinking when I poured this just now, I was like, when that was the last time I had a beer? And I think it was probably with you on the last podcast. Week? Yeah, probably. Like, that's the last time. And I have like a lot of beer in my house. Like, I'm a beer snob, as we've talked about before. And I like to have people over and have a beer. Like, if anyone's ever in Queens and I don't think you suck or have you blocked, you're more than welcome to come over to the Casa El Queens Joe over here, and I'll have a beer with you. But other than that, like, I just haven't had much of any of it. So anyways.
Understandable.
Yeah. So what's going on there? Pat's dressing like he just went to a Fanatics party where everyone has to be in all white. He's got his white hoodie.
You're looking fresh, man.
You got your white hoodie on. I think you have like 7 of those Nike hoodies, to be honest.
I do. You do. I probably do. I got a pretty significant hoodie collection. I'm a big hoodie guy. I wear them 10 and a half months a year. All right, so here's what we're going to do. We're obviously going to spend some time talking Bills today. We're recording this and streaming this live on the video side on Monday.
No tape delay.
By the time some people are watching or listening to this on Tuesday, the Bills will have made roster cuts. Maybe all of them. I don't know for sure, but at some point they will. As we record this, there hasn't been any kind of like significant cuts whatsoever. So we're not really going to go there with this episode. I'll cover that on the next one. I want to spend some time today talking about the Bills wide receiver room, not in terms of on the field, but salaries. CeeDee Lamb signed a monster deal on Monday. Got me thinking and looking through what the Bills receivers are making. I want to hit on that. I want to talk about a handful of Buffalo Bills that I think are on the verge of getting a big payday. Maybe what will that be? Will it be with the Buffalo Bills? We'll spend some time discussing that as well. I got a couple new segments featuring Joe that we're going to kick off with this episode, and he'll do them all the time when I got him on. So that's what we're going to do today. By the way, a couple people already in the comments. Alex Barber, Joe from Queen Rules. You got like a YouTube burner account or something like that? This guy Alex is always, it's the same thing too, is Joe from Queen.
I don't know, but hi, Colleen from Michigan.
Colleen, hello from Michigan. Go Bills. Yeah, we'll spend some time talking Bills today for sure. Before we get going, I'd be remiss if I didn't at least hit on this. I've talked about it on social media. I've talked about it on this podcast. I had over this past weekend, I went to New Jersey and I had a family reunion, a Moran family reunion. And this wasn't just a regular family reunion. The short version is this was the first time that I've seen any of my cousins, and this is all on my father's side of the family. This was the first time that I've seen anybody on that side of the family in at least 34 years, going all the way back to 1990. And for many of my second generations of cousins, this was the first time that I ever got to meet them at all. I just want to spend a couple minutes kind of highlighting that. And there's kind of a point to it at the end that I hope maybe a couple of people who are watching or listening might get something to take away from them. Maybe they got going on in their lives a little bit. Then we'll talk football, I promise you. So if you're watching or listening to this sometime on Tuesday or Wednesday, whenever, if this is shit that's going to bore you, fast forward 5 to 8 minutes and you can just pick right up. But let me start here, Joe. I was very close to my family growing up when I was a kid on my dad's side. I was born and raised in Buffalo. My father is from New York City. All of his family was New York City, which you've been there for many, many years now. And also like New Jersey, like Keensburg, New Jersey, Union Beach, like that area. I'm going to skip through a lot of this. I don't want to go through every detail because we'll be here for an entire podcast. But I lost my father died when I was young. I was 19 years old. And again, growing up, I used to go to New Jersey every summer with my family, or sometimes it would just be me and my dad. I got to know my cousins, my aunts and uncles very well, very close to them growing up. It was great. But we lived in Buffalo. My father died. I was 19 years old and he was 41. It was sudden. It was unexpected. It wasn't a long illness. He just, for all intents and purposes, dropped dead one day. 2 days before Christmas too, by the way, December 23rd, 1990. After that, I lost touch with that part of the family. And it was a different time than, when we were kids, Joe. And I know you know this. I mean, I'm older than you, but you're old enough. One, social media, one really even texting. You know what I mean? It was just regular old phones. And it was easy to kind of lose touch with people when you weren't around. So over a period of time, I just completely lost touch after my father's funeral and stuff like that. So a year turned into years. Years turned into a decade turned into like 2 decades. Kind of got used to it. It was a big void in my life, but I kind of just shoved it down and I got used to it. And don't get me wrong, man, I've been happy with my life. I'm very blessed. I got a great family of my own. I've done good enough in my professional life, my personal life, plenty of friends, but I always felt that void. Social media came about, Facebook, 2008, 2009 or so. And I started one by one reconnecting with people a little bit here and there, but it was never the same. It's not the same kind of relationship. And I just kind of yearned to meet people that, again, I hadn't seen since basically I was a kid, and I'm the older cousin, so they were younger than me. And it was just a rough time too. And like in my life, I know a couple of family members passed away after I had connected with them, and I just couldn't afford to get to New Jersey. I was living in Florida when my Aunt Peggy died. I couldn't afford to get down there. That shit sucked. Anyway, I reached out to my cousin, Donna, and this summer, who lives in New Jersey, and she's always been there. And I pretty much begged her to put together this big family party and try to get as many of the cousins to come as possible. And we made that happen this summer. And to her credit, man, she's a rock star. She did so good. Anyway, 25 people are at this house, and I show up Saturday. I go to New Jersey with my wife, and we're pulling up. And I do this show. I do live shows. I have audience in front of me. I've interviewed athletes, meeting people, whatever. I don't really get that razzled. It's fun. My heart was jumping through my chest for this party. And I was nervous. It was awkward, or a couple of uncomfortable, conversations. But by the end of the day, it was just incredible, man. And I just feel different now. It sounds corny, but like I'm filled up with family love. You know what I mean? Shit that I just been missing in my life from that side of my family for my entire adult life. And I guess what I want to say to people out there too, and then we're going to dive into some sports. I'm like, what the hell's going on? Is this a freaking therapy session or something? But if you're out there and you got somebody in your family or a bunch of family people that like you got an estranged, relationship with, or a strained relationship with, and it's been so long, you just feel like that ship has sailed. Don't feel that way, man. Reach out, You want to make things right. It's never too late. You could do it. I drove back from New Jersey on Sunday night, dude. I swear to God, not to get all emotional here, but going through pictures that I saw from this family reunion party, it just brought tears to my eyes, man. Just hugging people and talking to them. And it's, again, it was a big part of my life that just, it was missing. And now I feel full again. I went to bed Sunday night and it just felt absolutely freaking incredible, man. It really was. It was one of the best weekends of my adult life. I'm willing to go that far. That's how important this past weekend was to me.
That's awesome, man. Glad you had a good time. And is there going to be a second reunion coming up soon? Do you have anything?
I sure hope so, because
why don't you plan it? You can plan it for Buffalo and have people come there.
That the biggest thing that I'm determined to going forward, the biggest thing that I'm determined to have happen now is don't let this be a one and done. Like, it was great. It was memories, hugs, tears, funny stories. I pictured my dad and many other family members who were gone looking down on us saying, it's about fucking time you guys got together and did this. Right. Don't let it be a one and done, though. Like, I am determined to reach out to people in my family now and nurture and develop and maintain relationships, talk to them regularly, text them, call them, try to see them, more than once every 34 years and shit like that. So hopefully it was a foundation, a building block
Did you share with them some of your football takes? Were you like, I'm Pat from Buffalo, talking Buffalo? You may have heard of it. You want to listen to it? Did you promote your podcast? I'm sure you did.
But what an opportunity. Sort of. What an opportunity for, you love to call me Pandering Pat. What an opportunity this is. I met a Jets fan at the party. He wasn't part of the family. He was a friend of the family, of the host, my cousin Donna's husband's friend. Anyway, huge Jets fan. But he talked to me because, I'm a Buffalo guy. He says how much he loves coming to Buffalo and he loves tailgating with Bill's Mafia. Bill's Mafia is so much fun and they've been so accommodating and so fun and cool. And then he tells me how much he likes listening to do you know Ryan, that Ryan guy and that Matt, their podcast guys? He was talking about Matt Perino and Ryan Talbot. And he listens to their show all the time to keep up with Buffalo stuff. So I made him take a picture of him. I took a picture of him. He's holding up his phone with a video of Matt and Ryan on there, and he's smiling. And I put it on Twitter. I couldn't believe you must not have seen it because I can't believe.
Oh no, I did see it. I did see it, but
you did.
I thought about calling you Pandering Pat, but I let you enjoy your moment in the sun for pandering to that podcast and then pandering to your guest. So
all right. Well, my whole point was, folks, and that Chip there, hello Tonawanda, born now in South Florida, go Bills. Look, I just wanted to say that it just meant a lot to me. I've talked about it a lot on the show, so I know a lot of people were asking me how things went. So I'm telling you how things went. It was incredible. I'm just filled up with gratitude and emotion. And like I said, if you got somebody out there who you have a strained relationship with, don't just assume that it's too late, because it's truly not. By the way, you're a New Yorker, man. You've been down there for probably half your life now?
Over half my life this year, actually. Since 2002.
Now, I don't know how. I know there's, it's not the same. New York and New Jersey are different, but in some ways they're the same because they're both fucking insane in traffic. I could never live down there. I was losing my mind. And I'm not even talking about it like the Garden Park, the turnpike, how crazy traffic is. Like, just normal driving. Like, you can't make left turns. Like, if you want to make a left turn, you got to go past a light, to a side street, to another side street, and then get on that street and go through the light that way. It is bananas. I don't know if it's like that in New York. I would imagine it might even be worse. But even in New Jersey, and this isn't even like the biggest parts of New Jersey either. Just crazy. It's like the way you would have to go to get somewhere. Like, if something was on your left 100 feet, you'd have to go around a freaking maze to be able to get there. It was just nuts.
Jersey, I mean, I don't drive that often. My wife drives. It's her car. When we got married, I got married into the car because it was hers. And she does most of the driving. But if I have to drive, Jersey is not where I want to be driving through. Because if you think about it, you're between Philadelphia, then you got fucking Jersey, which is huge. It's like the most densely populated state in the country. And then you have New York City.
Is it really?
Yeah. It is. It's like there's a lot of people that live there. So you have all those. You have those three giant metropolitan areas that are like just fucking driving back and forth. but it's a nightmare. It's confusing too at times, especially if you're trying to get into New York City. I don't dig it at all. Manhattan, you drive through there. I mean, I haven't done it. I've done it maybe once. That's usually, it's not that bad because you're just like in traffic, but you're just standing around waiting for traffic to go, and it's kind of easy a little bit. It's just, parking's a disaster. But yeah, I mean, you don't need you're never going to live down here. Thank God. I couldn't handle you.
I couldn't handle it. I don't have the patience and the temperament to deal with the traffic. That alone is a deal breaker for me.
Yeah,
not to mention how much it costs to live in a freaking apartment down there.
That's true. But remember, you don't need a car in New York City. You can just take public transit. That's the beauty of New York City. You don't
New York City, okay.
Yeah,
okay.
Even if you lived in Brooklyn, you don't need a car. Even in Queens, you don't need a car. Parts of Jersey, you don't need a car. Like Jersey City, Hoboken, you don't need a car. You just take the path into New York City if you work there. And, the beauty about the city is that the best way I can describe it if you live in the 5 boroughs is it's like, think of it like the one area in Buffalo, like I like probably the most is probably like between like Allentown, we'll just say, and like Hurdle. Like around there, like where there's restaurants on top of restaurants.
Sure.
That's how that's how New York City is everywhere. Like no matter what part of the borough you're in, you just walk out, like you walk outside of my house. Like I live 10-15 minutes away from LaGuardia, not even maybe like 7 minutes drive, down the road. I can walk there. And like you walk outside my apartment, I have every restaurant you can pick. You want sushi, you want a pub food, you want to go to fucking pizza, brick oven shit, it's right there. So I don't need to go anywhere, to be honest. That's why, unfortunately, I would choose to die here, but we gotta buy a house soon and get to Connecticut at some point, which is gonna be a sad day because I have to change my name from Joe from Queens to Joe in fucking Connecticut, and it's gonna be a fucking I'm gonna fucking hate it. So I'm gonna be on this podcast, motherfucking everyone when that moment happens. I'm gonna be swearing up and being angry at everyone. So.
Go ahead. No, I was going to say the other thing about my trip this weekend that sucked is amazing as seeing the family was and other things I did, and I'm not going to get into on the show, but like things that I remembered, good places I remember going to as a kid, I went to, and it brought back a lot of memories. Again, 34 plus years, so it was amazing. But the one biggest idiot move I made was, so I go there with my wife, and going all the way up until about maybe a week or so before we went on the trip, the plan was, we get there overnight Friday into Saturday. Saturday, we do the entire family thing. Sunday, we were going to go into the city and go to a Yankees game on Sunday. I have not been, and I'm a lifelong Yankees fan. I still have not been to the new stadium. I have not been to the stadium since 2008, the last year at the old stadium before it moved. That's how long it's been. And the plan was to go to the game. But then we decided, because of work stuff, that we should get home on Sunday night. So we didn't end up going to the game because we wanted to be on the road by the early afternoon. Well, she had to work on Monday. I had a lot of stuff to catch up.
I thought you had to prep for this amazing podcast.
No, not so much really that. But I had work to catch up on. So we decided it would be better off if we got home Sunday night. Mm-hmm. So we didn't want to go to the Yankees game because by the time we got out of the Bronx stuff, probably don't get home until God knows what time, 3, 4 in the morning Sunday night. So we don't go to the game. Of course, fucking Aaron Judge has not 1, but 2 home runs. And of course, Aaron Judge, Soto, Stanton go back to back to back. One of the best games that you could possibly ever go to. Of course, it happens on the day where I was going to go to the game. It was on the agenda originally, and then I dropped it from the agenda. And Aaron Judge and the Yankees back, all the big bats going nuts. I'm sure you are, man.
Yeah, I'm not a big baseball guy. I have a fantasy baseball team that I actually am in the playoffs or next week, but I have no idea who half these players are. But I'm just, when I drafted them, I'm like, oh, this guy looks good. This guy looks good. I know like 5 or 6 Yankees players. I used to be bigger into baseball when I was younger. I probably talked about this before. I was a huge Braves fan in the 90s. And the reason why was they were on TBS all the fucking time. And it was the one team you can watch in Buffalo that you didn't need like the package or anything like that. I don't even know if they had the package back then. But I got into them. And then I liked the Yankees for like the 2000s. I followed them because they were on Yes Networks. I used to just, if I was bored, I'm like, oh, I'll watch a Yankees game. And I kind of remember a little bit of those high price, like Giambi, Sheffield teams. Yeah. That, like they won 1 title. I don't even know if Giambi was there. He might have been gone by the time they won it in 09. Because 09, I think was Sunday the reunion game? Like, didn't they have an old timers game like this weekend with like A-Rod and
they did. It was
there?
It was Saturday. It was Saturday. They didn't play though. They didn't have an old timers game like they used to. But yeah, it was old timers day. So
Yeah, because
it was reminisce time, and I loved that. Growing up as a kid, I was a big old timers day fan for the Yankees. Look, baseball. I've said this. Baseball has been the consequence of this podcast. I just don't have time to follow it anymore. I got a regular job. I got a part-time job. I do this show 5 days a week.
You got to stalk podcasters. You got to pander.
Yeah, something
you
like
got
that.
You got a lot of shit on your right. All right, let's get to
so
are we done with the run through? Can we go? We got 20 minutes in, and we got your reunion, and we got traffic jams when you're already late. Let's go to a freaking
Aaron Judge. Got some baseball.
Yeah.
So I shouldn't tell you my pillow story at the hotel. Then I should skip that, right?
Did you steal a pillow? Is that what you did?
I did not steal a pillow.
Did you have a
I brought my own pillow from Buffalo to the hotel because I thought I might sleep in the car, which I didn't. But also, it's my comfy pillow, and this you're going to think this is gross. Let me know if you think this is gross out there. I've had the same pillow that is longer. It's older than my relationship with my wife. And I've been married to my wife for 23 years. I've had a pillow, the same pillow that I sleep with every night for about 25 years at least.
It's gross depending on how many times you wash it.
I washed it regularly. It's been washed plenty of times. The pillowcases get changed on the reg. So but
all right. I guess I believe you about that.
So I brought it to the hotel. We checked out the hotel at noon. We went out and we did the things that I talked about over the course of a couple hours. I went to the boardwalk in Keensburg, New Jersey, and a couple other things. I went to the cemetery to visit some family people. Anyway, we're about to hit the road, and I was like, fuck. I left my fucking pillow at the hotel. Called the hotel. They had no idea. Nobody couldn't get a hold of anybody directly. It was 20 miles. We drove 20 miles back to Iceland, New Jersey, I guess. That's where we stayed in the hotel. It was 20 miles away. Waited 15 minutes, couldn't get a hold of anyone. They gave me a key to the room. We were in 116. Pop in the key. Pillow was still there because they didn't do maintenance yet on the room. They didn't toss it. So I ended up getting my pillow back. I drove 20 miles out of the way before leaving to go home to get my pillow.
I'm very happy for you. Mike Lindell will be happy for you, buddy, because that's your pillow or my pillow.
Yeah. Anyway.
All right.
Enough is enough.
So we're
you're bullying me into getting the Bill stuff.
Yeah, let's get to the Bill stuff. It's 22 minutes in. I got a bad back.
Before that, CeeDee Lamb. CeeDee Lamb signed a monster contract on Monday, $34 million per year. Got like $100 million guaranteed, 4 years. Basically a longer, more expensive Stephon Diggs contract.
Sure.
For sense. Dallas. I looked at the top 7 wide receivers right now in the NFL and what they average per year. And they all make at least $28 million. I went to the 2024 Bills roster and started looking at some contracts. You know who the top paid receiver is, right? Curtis Samuel.
I would assume so, yes.
His average is around $8 million a year, and the Bills have a very easy out after 2 years as well. Financially, the Bills do not have a lot invested in this wide receiver room. They, of course, Gabe Davis Walk, who got like 13, 14 a year from Jacksonville, and they traded Stephon. Technically, they still got Stephon on the payroll, though, because they're eating that dead cap. So I guess technically I'm wrong. But you look at their current receivers, there's just not a financial investment. And then you look at this group, and I think it's going to be quite a while before they make a significant financial investment in their wide receivers. Shakir's under contract for this year and next.
Mm-hmm.
I would say his ceiling is maybe a Samuel type contract. Keon Coleman is a 2nd round rookie. He's not even going to sniff a contract for 3 years. How do you feel about this room right now? You know, Brandon Ayuk was a name we've heard about all summer. Connected.
How do I feel about this room? My God, we've been talking about this room for 6 months. Marge Simpson.
I gotta say this too. Of all the people I podcast with, you are like the one that I get scared of. Like, oh shit, I got to bring this up again. I know we've talked about it already. Other people, the Anthony Marinos,
they're just rolling. They love talking about the same shit every day.
Play the hits. I try to talk contracts or something with Joe.
I got it. It's fine. I'll play your game.
I'll tell you what. Let me pull up somebody here randomly. I'm going to pull up Colleen here in the comments. So actually, this is a personal one. I'll read that later. It was about my dad. Real cool, though. But anyway, there's fans in there. Let's pretend, Joe, for the fucking sake of it, that there are people here watching or listening for the first time, and they haven't heard your takes. They don't know what your thoughts are.
It's
so
very
let's operate.
possible.
Let's operate from that from that
All right.
standpoint.
Thank you to our new listeners. There's like 3.5 of you. Look, the wide receiver room is not very good. I am not high on it at all. It's not good. I'm not happy about Diggs leaving. If you're new, I'm still pissed off about that. I don't know if I'm going to sit here and go, okay, like they don't have something coming up in terms of big ass deals for wide receivers. Because again, they can make trades. Maybe that's going to happen. But you're right. This roster, as it sits down, no one is getting a payday unless, for another couple of years at least from the wide receiver room. I think what you're seeing right now is NFL wide receivers are getting fucking paid with a capital P. And it's like the most, I mean, when you start dealing with like the biggest contract of a non-quarterback in history, that's where we're at with wide receivers. And there's an interesting debate you can make about paying wide receivers because on one hand, and I've said this before, I think it's easier than ever to pass in the NFL. I think because the rules are against, like the rules are in favor of wide receivers. You can't hit a guy over the middle anymore. There's no illegal contact. It is why, in my opinion, the entire fabric of looking at stats, touchdowns, passes, all that shit has just skyrocketed over the last 10 years. And because of that, you may view it as, why do we need wide receivers when a guy, like to pay one, when a guy can be an impact wide receiver right away? Or, we can spread the ball around, or anyone can get open, in terms of that. And you can look at the numbers. Like, all you have to do is like look at young wide receivers. If you go to like Pro Football Reference or like StatHead and you put in wide receivers, first year wide receivers from like 1980 to 2010, and then you put 2010 to today, it's going to be almost the same number, to be honest with you, because guys are just going over 1,000 yards, where back when we were kids, you had to be you had to be in your third year as a wide receiver to do anything. And now it's like you can be an impact guy right away. So it's easier to be a wide receiver, I think, now than it was then. So it's like you can go like, why would I have to pay anyone if it's easier for you to be this good? Because you could have running backs. You can it's kind of like a little bit of the running back situation where you can just switch guys on and off. Now, with that being said, it is nice to have a bona fide stud back there, like Lamb or AJ Brown or Tariq Hill and all those types of guys. Like, yeah, I would love to have that, on the Bills or anywhere. And the thing is maybe you want to have a mix of that. If you're a roster, like, hey, you want that guy who's young and like a first round talent that was drafted first, and you have that rookie contract still with him, and he's great. And then maybe like by year 4, you have the heir apparent coming through. So if you have the option of, hey, I don't want to pay this guy, but I have this guy here, maybe you can do that, because it is a lot of money. Now, if it was up to me, I would pay wide receivers. I think, hey, they make your quarterback better. I think if you look, I think the Chiefs are kind of an outlier. I know they've done that the last 2 years. They got rid of Hill because they were like, hey, we don't want to pay him, but Hill's still great. And like, can you imagine if the Chiefs didn't win the Super Bowl, which last 2 years was close. They almost lost those games against talented offenses that had way more talent at the skill position when San Fran and the Eagles, then you would have been like, I can picture Chiefs fans being like, what the F? Why did you trade Hill? Because I remember last year we were watching a lot of Chiefs games and their wide receivers looked like complete ass. And I'm sure they were sitting there going, man, what if we had Hill? What if we had Hill during some of those games? So it's definitely an interesting debate in terms of, do you want to pay wide receivers? Because I could see you being like, hey, we can get other guys open, scheming up and all that sort of shit. But I think the Chiefs are that outlier, because in the last 5 years, there are teams that have gotten rid of their wide receivers, like, Devontae Adams with Aaron Rodgers. That went to hell really fast, for Aaron Rodgers. AJ Brown, when he got traded from the Titans, Ryan Tannehill went from, hey, this guy's not bad anymore, to, oh, he's bad again. And I think you have to look at that. And you have to even look at San Fran having like 2 bona fide studs at wide receiver last year, and 2 years ago, the Eagles had 2 freaking studs at wide receiver. So, it's an interesting debate, but the trend is you are paying wide receivers. So this isn't, I mentioned running back a little bit, like maybe some may view it as a dime a dozen, but running backs they stop paying for, whereas wide receivers, they are still paying for those guys left and right. So
I'm looking while you were talking to your point, and I'm looking at it actually right now. I went to over the cap, and I looked at wide receivers, their annual average per year, and I'm counting at least 24, 25 receivers in this league right now are making an average of at least 20 million a year.
Yeah.
There's nobody on the Bills who's even making 9 right now. Let me ask you this though, okay?
Go ahead.
Because we're gonna go with Stephon Diggs at first, okay? But I would say this to you: Stephon Diggs not being a Buffalo Bill right now is not about money. It's not because they didn't want to pay him, because they're still paying him. In fact, they're paying him $3 million more to not be in Buffalo this year. Yeah. That's about getting him. We'll debate the player, if they're getting rid of the player, but that's getting that dead cap now, getting that shit over with. So next year, the slate is clean with him. But say somebody like that, they could have been linked to Brandon Ayuk, somebody like that's going to cost you $25-30 million. Does this feel like a football team if you're in charge and you got to give up maybe a second and a fourth, and you're going to be paying someone like Brandon Ayuk or somebody along his skill level 25 to 30, 31 million a year? Are you willing? Do you think that's a worthy investment to put in wide receiver?
I would do that, but I can understand if they view it as, hey, let's get another first round wide receiver, and we get him for cheap for 5 years, and I went over in my preamble just now. You can get a guy in the first round who can play well right away. And if you hit that, and unfortunately the Bills have not done that enough. I bitched about it 5 years ago that they never invested in the wide receiver position. They haven't drafted a wide receiver in the first round since freaking Sammy Watkins, for fuck's sakes. It's been a while. It's been a minute, okay? And I think that it will be interesting to see what happens next year, because they are still not out of the cap. I looked this up before I came on the podcast. I think the Bills are like $5 million under the cap or something, but they could obviously rework some stuff next year, probably, etc.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So we'll see what happens. But I want to say that they want to get a number one wide receiver at some point, but at the same time, and I use the Diggs, like, okay, they had Diggs for like 4 or 5 years. They gave him 2 different contract extensions. I would assume they want to do that, but they could view it as, hey, it's Moneyball. Let's just get a wide receiver. We have him cheap for a couple years, and we just get a bunch of guys here. That's kind of what the Chiefs have done, and even the Packers. 2 teams, when you think about it, they got rid of their high-priced guys that they didn't want to pay in Adams and Hill, and both teams drafted a lot of wide receivers within the first and second round, and with the hopes that one of those guys like comes of age and does well. So they could do it that way. I mean, I would like it to be in between, where it's like, hey, get a young guy in the first couple of rounds and then pay another guy. But we'll see what happens this year. I think it depends on how Allen does this year. Allen looks awesome, and they're not missing a beat, passing wise, and like they may view it as, fuck it, why do we have to get another wide receiver? In terms of that, I don't know if they'll want to invest in 2,000 defensive linemen for Sean McDermott, which I love. That's sarcasm, obviously, for people out there.
Of course.
Yeah, but for our new listeners, that's sarcasm, because I don't believe in paying defensive linemen, but the Bills fucking sure as hell do. But it's an interesting debate to have. But right now, the trend is that wide receivers are getting paid, so they're not viewing them in a watered down, they're replaceable, we'll find someone else kind of way. The only team that has proven to be good with that philosophy has been the Chiefs, as of right now, because the other teams, I guess maybe you could say Green Bay, like I just went over Adams leaving, but that was like 3 years ago, that happened, or 2 years ago, whenever the fuck it was. So, we'll see what happens. I don't know. I would like weapons. I think the way you win in this league is you got to throw the football. You need touchdowns, passing yards, all that shit. And I would rather have an offensive doom than, we got to play Moneyball or complimentary football and all that crap. That's not my jam.
All right, I am back here with Joe from Queens. Look, this is about money, and we're going to talk about some other positional players on the Bills that are going to be in line for money. I kind of want to talk about what they may get, when they may get it, and if we think that it would be worth it. But continuing quickly here with this wide receiver talk, it's a little odd because you get rid of your best player, or at least he's been your most productive receiver anyway, Stephon Diggs. You trade him. You trade for an asset for next year. You do draft Keon Coleman in the second round, but it's like, all right, so you're not going to invest financially heavily in this position. You go out afterwards, you sign Chase Claypool, you sign MBS, small little prove it kind of contracts. One case, the guy's already gone from the team. The other, we'll see over the next couple of days how that plays out. But you're like, all right, well, let's take a couple receivers in this draft. The Bills take one with their first pick, but then they don't go back to receiver. I'm kind of torn how I feel about that because part of me, and not part of me, all of me was mad the weekend of the draft. I'm like, how do you not double dip at wide receiver if you're not going to be investing in this position financially? But then I'm like, well, I like Cole Bishop, the safety. He's probably going to be a starter sooner than later. Dwayne Carter's a pretty good rotational defensive tackle. I know you hate defensive linemen. And Ray Davis certainly looks the part as a promising running back right now. After the 4th round, it's just a little crapshoot with receivers
preseason,
anyway.
buddy. All right, relax with the running back. He looks okay. Okay, it's preseason. Right,
he looked good in college, so I was pretty happy about him coming into the league.
Sure.
All right, so like I said, when it comes to the receiving room, financially, it's not just you're not going to get that guy. Well, you're not getting him this year. I just, we're a week and a half from the start of the regular season. I got to admit this. I'm still surprised a little bit that the Bills have not swung for a big deal with the receiver. I really am. I truly thought when they traded Stephon, even after drafting Coleman, who I always thought was going to be your quote unquote David Davis replacement, and Samuel is going to be a better gadgety version of what Isaiah McKenzie was. Khalil Shakir is still developing. He's your Cole Beasley type. I really thought they were swinging to go get an upgrade over Stephon Diggs. And in reality, they just haven't really done anything to replace him at all to this point. It's going to be by committee, clearly. Dalton Kincaid will have a big role. Are we looking at the 2015 Carolina Panthers, Joe?
As of right now, yeah. I mean, they've modeled that entire...
they really have. They've modeled that shit.
They've modeled that entire organization through the Panthers. The last thing it was like the value of running backs, because the Panthers back then they had D'Angelo Williams, Jonathan Stewart. They were like 1st round running backs, and then they got McCaffrey later on. But like the Bills, it took a little bit, but they were investing 2nd rounders into running backs. But yeah, it's the same formula, and we'll see what they do for the future. I'm not very optimistic about it.
What about Matt Collins? I haven't even met. Are you proud of me? I have not mentioned Matt Collins. I know you're a big Matt Collins guy.
Cat hater. Yeah. I got look, I'm intrigued to see what this wide receiver room does. I have no confidence. I have some confidence in Shakir. That guy, I'll give him like a little bit. I'll give him like a half a rose or, and flowers, whatever the fuck you want to call it.
What about nothing in Samuel?
I don't know. I see him more of like a gimmick, a higher end Isaiah McKenzie. Like that's kind of like I see him as. Yeah, that's it. Well, I wasn't listening. I was looking at my phone.
You already were zoning out. I was
already. Yeah, it's all good. So yeah, it's I don't know. We'll see what happens with the wide receiver room. I think there's a lot of ways this offense can go this season. Like I think they're going to be more of a ball control offense. I think they're going to run the football more. I think they're going to want to spread the football around. I think it's going to be really about Dalton Kincaid, and I think it's going to be about Dawson Knox. I think they're going to get a lot of 12 personnel.
But can that be successful? Before we get into, we're going to get back into money, but like just stick with the offense and the receivers. Well, just the offense. I'll forget just the receivers. But is there a part of you? Do you get a good sense that this offense still? Without the names right now and no quote unquote identity that we know of, at least going into the season, they still have the tools to be successful, because I find myself on the side of saying yes, but you're relying on Dalton Kincaid to take a big step. You're relying on Khalil Shakir to really become a lot more than what he was, which I do think he can be. And you're relying on Keon Coleman to be something pretty early on, because I like Matt Collins. That's my boy, but he ain't going to be that. He's not going to get you 900 yards. He's not Gabe Davis. Matt Collins is not replacing Gabe Davis. So Keon Coleman needs to step up early on if you're going to be successful, I think, throwing the ball. There's a lot of projecting here. Well, if Coleman's good, if Kincaid's good, if Shakir's good. Difference was with the Bills the last couple of years, you knew Gabe Davis was good. You knew Stephon Diggs was great. You know what I'm saying? There was a lot of projecting right now that there wasn't the last couple of years.
So what's your question? Do you think I have confidence in the wide receiver?
Yeah, how much confidence do you have in them?
No, not much. I mean, I don't have that much. but they have Josh Allen, so we'll see. What is this bullshit? Chris
Baker
Baker's
as holy Christ
my
should
ass.
show a replacement for that.
Why don't you go tweet some more drink photos for your happy hour, buddy? My microphone works, buddy. Go tweet some more things. Screw you. You said Grigorenko was going to be a #1 center in the league. Don't think the streets don't forget, buddy. Kick your ass next time I see you.
Who's in line for the Bills right now to get a payday, a big one? I think it starts with Greg Rizzo. He's going into year 4. They picked up his option. He's got 2 years left. I looked it up. Top 15 edges. Now, you got to remember this too, Joe. It's not always about how good the player is. It's about the timing. Like, when are they going to get paid? It's not always, well, he's a top 15 player. Maybe not. But he's a top 15 player at the right time. Anyway, the average for a defensive edge rusher, top 15. So if you want to put him in that slot, 19 to 20 million. How much has Greg Rizzo got to prove to you to be getting a contract, whether it's next week or maybe after this season, that's going to pay him 19 to 20 million dollars? Because again, that will put him at around 15 or so among the highest paid edge rushers in this league.
How many sacks did he have last year?
8. No, I think he only had 5 last year, and I think he had 8 the year before, or maybe I have it flip-flopped. I know 8's his career high. He's had 5, 8, and 5 over his first 3 years.
I would like him to get at least 10, and then I'll be comfortable with giving him a lot of money. That's at least 10. Like if you're gonna pay an edge rusher a lot of money, he's got to get sacks. And I know that you have that old debate of fucking does sacks matter, or they're overrated, or pressures matter more. All that shit. Like, just give me some sacks. That's kind of what I want, and if he can get that, and I feel like an edge rusher, you're going to get paid like an edge rusher, you need to get sacks. So, like, give me over 10, and then, like, again, then you can see the progress of a guy who went from, his trajectory is a high. Like, he's been getting better, but I still want some bigger splash plays. And I think they're going to sign him. They're going to give him that money because we've talked about this. They love defensive linemen and all that sort of shit. They want to pay everyone, and every defensive lineman, I got an upside. You're going to get fucking paid like crazy. But I think that's what I would want in terms of, like, hey, I'm going to extend him, as give me 10 sacks, your first rounder. Like, that's kind of like what I would like you to be. You can't be Shaq Lawson, which, he was okay. Like, I'm not
he's better than Shaq. He's a great
he is.
edge defender. He sets the edge really well. But I agree with you. You got to get the quarterback on the ground. If I were to tell you Greg Rizzo was one of the most 5 important players on the Buffalo Bills this year, would you buy or sell that?
Yes, I would buy that.
Yeah, I think so as well. He's got to take that next step if this defense is going to be anywhere near as good as you hope that it's going to be. I feel like
they don't have Von. Von Miller's the wild card, and if Von Miller is what we all think he is, like, at least I think he is. I don't think he's going to be very good this year, coming off that injury again. Like
5 to 7 sacks. 5 to 7 sacks. I can see Vaughn, something like that. Same for Smoot.
Yeah,
maybe you get 7.5 to 9 from Epinesa, but you need a guy like Rizzo who does all the things he already does. But then he's got to get 10 to 12 sacks. He's got to be in the lineup every week. He's got to play. But anyway, he is a guy who I think is absolutely going to be paid. If he's not at the top of the line, he's right near it. The other guy, I think, is the right tackle, Spencer Brown. Again, it's not about being a great player. It's about being a good player at the right time. He's going into, I think it will be his final year of his contract. Yeah, this is his 4th season right now.
Yeah. So
I looked it up. The top 10 right tackles right now in the NFL, they're averaging between 16.5 to 17 million annually. He's the only pending big name unrestricted free agent for the Bills. Again, Rizzo's still under contract after this year as well. So maybe you don't have quite that sense of urgency. But if you want to, you lost Mitch Morse where you cut him this offseason. If you don't want to lose Spencer Brown next year, you're probably looking to get a deal done, maybe even before this season starts. But what would your reaction be if you find out Spencer Brown signs a 4-year contract and he's getting an average of 16.5 to 17 million a year? Because I got to feel like if he has another good year and stays healthy, if the Bills don't pay him, somebody's going to give him that.
Yeah, I mean, he had a good season last year, and it was probably his best. And I think
definitely.
You want to keep Josh Allen upright, and last year's offensive line played really, really well. So I would definitely buy that contract. I think they will extend him because if you look, I have this philosophy of I look at units like defensive linemen or offensive line, and I feel right now there's only one guy on the offensive line getting paid very well, and that's Deion Dawkins.
Right.
And Connor McGovern, I guess you can maybe say, I don't know, he's not making that much money, but I think there's room to give more money to someone else, and that could be Spencer Brown for the most part. So I can definitely see them, wanting to do him up. And, it's important to get guys up front that are going to protect Josh Allen. So
I wouldn't give him an extension right now. It's a little bit of a gamble, though, if you're Brandon Beane, because if you don't extend him, if you extended him right now, maybe you can get him for 12 to 14, right? If you were to give him a contract tomorrow. If you don't, and he plays well again, now you're probably talking 17, 18. Maybe you price yourself out, but I'd be willing to gamble because he's only had one good year in 3 seasons. He's only been fully healthy. He struggled as a rookie, didn't do much. His second year, he was hurt. Last year, he was healthy, and I thought he played well, but I kind of feel like I need to see it twice. I got like Tyler Bass and Dawson Knox syndrome right now. I think they got contracts, got paid too early. I feel like if you give Spencer Brown $14, $15 million right now today, you might be in danger of doing the same. I know you don't follow the rookies much. You literally don't watch the preseason unless I force you to. Tylen Grable looks like with a year of development, maybe he could be a guy who plays right tackle, or maybe they draft early next year. So I'm not Tylen Grable, 6th round pick.
Yeah, okay, yeah. I got his jersey. Yeah, okay. Good luck, buddy, with that.
No,
6th rounder. Okay, sure.
I'd be more if it's me. And I'm going to sign one of those two guys, Rizzo and Spencer Brown. And again, those are the two guys who are probably they're in line to get contracts like now. I would invest in Rizzo first because I think I know what he is. I'm not quite sure what Spencer Brown is.
I'd go for I wouldn't sign either of them. I'd go for wide receivers, at least 2 of them. Get that money out. No, I'm playing. If you between those two, I would probably go Rousseau.
Yeah.
But
now, look, they do got some guys locked up pretty well. Teron Johnson's locked up. Go ahead.
You have to think about this. They love using their little defensive line rotation of everyone has takes a turn at fucking rushing the passer. So you're gonna give Rousseau a ton of money, and how many snaps is he gonna play? And that's I bitched about this before. Give me the 2014 Bills defensive line where everyone played and everyone ate. Instead of this fucking,
that's a fair critique.
Instead of this thing, because it was like you're gonna pay this guy what to play. I don't have his snap count in front of him. I can probably get it if you stall.
60%, probably 60, 63% at the most. Yeah. That's not really a ton. 70, 73%, I'd say, where there's a lot of like a TJ Watts of the world. They're probably playing 75 to 80% of the snaps. That's a fair point. McDermott, the way he rotates the defensive lineman, do you really want to pay an edge rusher that much money? They did it a couple years ago with Von Miller. It just, of course, it hasn't worked out. But anyway, Teron Johnson's locked up. Oh, my
God. Rousseau, just FYI, I'm sorry to interrupt you. Rousseau took, I don't know if he missed a game last year, but he 54% of the snaps last year. I don't know if he missed the game.
I don't think he missed
No, he didn't. He played 16 games. He's played 16, so 17. So he missed a game. So
did he?
Right. Yeah, I mean, it says 16 games. There's 17 now.
Well, it still sounds about right. 54 to 60%. That sounds like a Bills rotation. So, not sure about that, man. And then, you guys, like I said, Teron Johnson, Ed Oliver, Deion Dawkins, they're already locked up. Then you got that next wave, guys like Christian Benford, Terrell Bernard. Terrell Bernard's going into year 3. I mean, he's only been a star for 1 year, but if he has another good year, he'll be going into a contract
Star's
year
a little
next summer.
I think Star's overstating it a little bit, buddy.
I think he's on the verge of being one.
Okay, well,
all right. You're.
It's 1 year, man. Let's not Kiko Alonso his ass, okay? Like
Jordan Love from the Packers had 1 good year, and he's got the highest paid, richest quarterback contract in the history of football, literally based on 1 year.
That's fair, but he was drafted in the 1st round. I think a third rounder you view it a little bit different. At least I do. But okay, sure, we'll see what happens.
He's a guy that I want to keep around. Now he's a guy. You look at that position, linebacker, 10 to 12 million a year. Sign me up I would extend him tomorrow. Actually, even on his 1 good year, 10 to 12 million. Benford, I like him, 8 to 10 million or whatever at corner. He's in line to get paid. James Cook, I don't think he's going to get a big second contract. It's just not a big thing with most running backs in the league. I think that's part of the reason why Ray Davis was there. Here's another point to bring up, by the way. Last thing about the money. Some point to already having to redo Josh Allen's contract. He's only the 13th highest paid quarterback in the league right now. And do you think that's something that the Bills have to be really mindful of? Because if you rip up that contract, you give him a new one. The cap keeps going up and you got players coming off the books like Diggs after this year. You're going to cut Von Miller after this year. But you got to account for probably giving Josh a lot more bank than he's making right now. He's only the 13th highest paid QB. That's low, dude.
Yeah, but remember, if you give him a new contract, you can rework it where the first couple of years the salary will go down. So it might help them with the cap. But yeah, he shouldn't be paid like the 13th most expensive quarterback or whatever. He should definitely be in the top 5. But that's what happens. And kudos to them when they drafted him and they got that extension done as fast as possible after what was it, like year 4 or whatever the case it was. But yeah, I could see them exploring that because I think next year he's got a giant cap number. So if you want to lower that, you could either rework his deal or you could just give him a new extension and say fuck it, and then maybe it'll go down. So
let me ask you one last question to put a bow on this part. Then I got a couple like non-Bill segments that I kind of want to debut. That's what we'll wrap up with for today's show. But all these scenarios that we just went through right now, again, we're about 11, 12 days, something like that, out from the start of the regular season. If you could do one thing, if there's one thing that you would like to see done between now and the start of the regular season, what would it be? Aside from trading for Brandon Ayuk or Devontae Adams, because I know that's what you want to say, that's just not happening. Something realistic, like one of these guys that we talked about gets an extension. If you could do one right now before the season starts, what would you do? Or you could just simply say, I wouldn't do anything with any of these contracts right now. I don't want to pay anybody that we've talked about. With the premise that, again, you're gambling a little bit. Because it's easy to say, well, I don't want to pay them now, show me again. But if they show you again, it's going to cost you a lot more money 12 months from now.
I would wait.
Yeah?
I would
wait. You wouldn't extend anybody right now. You would not give the contract.
Yeah, I would wait. Rousseau, I'm very close to saying let's do it because that salary can go up. But I also think the salary is going to be up anyways because young pass rushers always get paid a lot more. And if you're asking me, like, what do I value more or what do I think the team will value more, they're going to want defensive line over a tackle, and helping out. But I could be wrong in that regards. But yeah.
Do you trust Tyler Bass? This really doesn't have much to do about money because you're going to eat $4 million to cut him and you're not going to save anything basically. But I don't know. There's something that just doesn't seem right about him this whole summer. And I don't know if it's media driven, fan driven or whatever. I mean, he's not looked good at practice and camp all summer. He did miss a 51-yarder on not that that's a gimme, but I got a lot of concerns about him right now. I feel like this is the guy, if he's a head case, he's going to cost the Bills a game. And that one game could be the difference between winning or losing a division.
I'm a little bit concerned. We talked about, if there's one thing we talked about back in July, like looking into camp, the one thing you and I were talking about was how Tyler Bass would rebound from last year. He didn't have a really good season last year. And then it ended with him missing a kind of a field goal he should have made. 41 yards is not, against the Chiefs. It gets forgotten because there were just so many other moments in that game that, they could have won here or there or whatever. And it gets forgotten and no one had confidence in the Bills defense to stop Mahomes, which I don't blame anyone for feeling that way. But yeah, I feel everything is so we're all just so focused on this team and like panicking. We can panic very easily. And like missing a field goal like that, and you got the live tweeting of play-by-play during training camp, like Tyler Bass missed 2 kicks today in training camp, and Bills X loses their shit. And I go, oh, that's not great. But then at the same time, I'm like, how many before there's Twitter? Was Steve Christie missing kicks in fucking training camp? Like maybe he was. I have no idea. I don't think anyone was play-by-play and tweeting it. They weren't. So it's a little bit of a concern. Now at the same time, this is an offense that scores a lot of touchdowns or should score a lot of touchdowns. And they definitely do gamble a lot more and they're aggressive in the red zone. And they're not good in the red zone, unfortunately, but I'm going to give it some time a little bit and then we'll see. But if he's a problem, then look, you just got to get another kicker, and then like have two
That's
kickers.
part
Maybe
of the problem, though. In theory,
like,
it's like, oh yeah, cut him. Who cares about the money? Well, all right, well that's half the problem or half the problem solved. But
yeah, you can
all right,
take
well, who are
that.
you going to sign? Who is better out there right now that's a free agent that doesn't have a job than Tyler Bass? Is there anyone
Yeah.
out there who's actually better than him? It's easy to say, well, get rid of him, cut him. Okay. Well,
I
who's
mean,
going to
look, it was interesting after that game how pissed off McDermott was that preseason game. It's the only thing I took from that preseason game.
I don't think he trusts him. I think there's a lack
he was
of
pretty
confidence
much
in him.
he like laid it in like he needs to make that kick, and it's like ugh. And that's I told you before that if there's one thing you can't fake, like look, preseason training camp, it's all fake, it's bullshit. We all know that. But there's one thing you can't fake, or at least you and I know that. Other people don't. But there's one thing you can't fake, it's kicking. Okay, you don't put in vanilla kicking schemes or whatever the fuck. You know, you kick a field goal, like it should be the same anytime. You know, unless you're playing for the Super Bowl, obviously. But like it shouldn't. There shouldn't be that much of a difference. So, you know, it's worth. I'll play storybook time here. You know, Scott Norwood, after he missed wide right, his 91 season, he sucked. He was not very good. And, you know, they kept him around and he missed a lot of kicks. And then they got rid of him the next year. And I don't know if it was like his skills were eroding or maybe there was a lack of confidence. He wasn't an old man. He was a rookie in 85, I think it was. So he was barely 30 at that time. So I don't know. I mean, if that's something that could happen where a guy just loses his fastball. Remember like Dan Carpenter? Remember he had one really good year and then the next year he was fucking garbage.
Fucking brutal. Then
but he was good. He was good.
And hit himself in the face. That'll be my lasting memory of Dan
but like and he was kind of still young, I believe, but it's something worth monitoring.
Become a head case. Kickers are like golfers, I would say, Joe. You know, other positions, quarterback, receiver, it's about physical, you know, being a physical specimen, having athletic ability to make plays. Kicking is literally mechanical. It's kind of like golf, being a good golfer on the course. It's the same swing every time, but golfers struggle mentally, you know.
I just hope
golf's a mental game. I kind of feel like kicking and punting are kind of mental games as well. I fear he's a head case now.
It just might be, like I said, there's so much pressure on every player right now for the Bills because there are a lot of Super Bowl aspirations and all that shit. You know, I try to remember like Ryan Lindell. Like Lindell kicked here for a while, and I remember Lindell in like 03, 04. He missed a lot of crucial kicks that year when they were 9-7, and like if he made a couple of those kicks, they're going to the playoffs that year. And then the next year he was fine, and then he figured it out, and he played for another fucking 6 years here. He was there for a while, so I'm gonna see what you know. It's one of those things where there are so many other things I'm worried about, like with the fucking wide receiver room or with the safeties, that I'm probably like not as focused on the kicker, but it's there. But there's other things that that I'm worried about. But you're right. It is something that it does seem like he doesn't have a lot of confidence in, like McDermott doesn't. And we'll see what happens. It could just be all bullshit. Maybe it's more another layer to the preseason is bullshit narrative. And I don't,
you know what I realized when you talk, and this is not an insult. Actually, in a way, this is actually a compliment, but you might not receive this as a compliment. But I'm telling everyone out there watching and listening, this is actually a compliment. You are the anti cover one.
Oh God!
Like I'm watching film breakdown, and look, I love what they do for what they do. You know, the film breakdowns, the analytical stuff. Call me a panderer. You're the complete opposite. Preseason's bullshit. Don't watch it. Kicking your fucking head case. That's the expert analysis from Joe from Queens.
Well, look, I'm just saying, like it is. If there's one position,
I'm not saying you're wrong, by the way.
I know if there's one position I can sit there and go for preseason, like maybe there should be concern. It is a kicking because, like I said, there's no vanilla kicking. Sure. But at the same time, it is preseason, so who the fuck knows? But as I said before, I'm more worried about the fucking wide receiving room, the stupid safeties, the freaking lack of a pass rush that could possibly happen, Von Miller's knee, the interior offensive line. You know, the weather, who the hell knows?
Kicking's up there for me, though. See, I don't agree with that. Kicking's up there for me because I feel like...
Oh, please. You're one of those guys who cares about his backup quarterback thing.
Well...
Let me just say this. The only thing I'm interested in, because I know you didn't... going back to the opening, because you didn't want to talk about who was going to make the 53-man roster, and you're like, oh, you don't want to do it because I'm the worst at that, because I'm like, I don't fucking know who's making it. I don't care either. But I want to see... if your boy, the UB guy from Lancaster, I want to see if he's going to make the team because
that's not why I don't want to talk. I don't want to talk about it because 90% of the people who watch or listen to this are going to know by the time.
When is the deadline? 3 p.m.
Tomorrow. Tomorrow is in today, Tuesday.
Oh,
Tuesday 4 p.m. And usually that
people
shit
listen to
out.
this in the morning, probably, don't they? Don't they listen to this in the morning?
Late morning.
We could have previewed something.
Lunchtime.
Look, all that I'm saying is I want to see if that guy makes the team or not, because he didn't have and again, I didn't watch the preseason game because I didn't give a fuck. But based off the content bros and the Bills beat bros, he was kind of there. He wasn't as impressive as the last game.
Sure.
And
he was a monster.
Yes, and I want to see because I'm ready. You know me. I fucking hate August football, and I'm ready to put another log on that fire of example 25.5.
You're a heel because you're a heel.
I'm not a heel.
You're a heel. You want him to get cut because you want to make the heel move.
No.
You just said if he gets caught, it's going to be example 10.
I win either way. If he makes the team, great. It's a good story for the guy from Buffalo that wasn't drafted and that you want to get on the podcast one day. And I win then. And if he doesn't make the team, then I'm I win there too. So, I confirmation bias, baby. But right. I don't know who's going to make this. I'm curious to see what they do with the wide receiver room.
They're not doing anything with the wide receiver room.
No, who makes the team? Is MVS going to go on IR?
We'll talk about that next week because
you got Marino coming on probably to talk about that.
We'll be talking about it all week long. Who makes the team and who doesn't?
Sidebar, because I know how you love when I address this. I will not be on the podcast on Sunday because I am going to be in Cape May until Monday. So you have to find someone else for Sunday this week, or you can have me on Monday night.
And you're deciding an hour into this live show.
I just remember because I didn't want to forget. I got things to do and I forget shit. And so maybe you could have Chris Baker on since he has a fucking great microphone allegedly.
His microphone is pretty dope, man. It's actually
he probably bought it. He probably stole it from the Sabres.
In fairness to you, Joe from Queens, you actually sound fine.
Yeah, I've been insecure about it the whole time now. I'm hitting my mic and being this.
Your mic's fine. All right. So
screw you, Baker.
Big thank you, by the way, for people on the video side, watching the side. We're over 500 viewers live right now on the video side. Let's wrap up with this. So I want to actually drop two kind of new segments. We're going to do something called Mount Flushmore. This is the anti-Mount Rushmore. So instead of, for an example, when I say, hey, Joe, what's the Mount Rushmore of wings? And you say, well, think of your 4 favorite places. It's the complete opposite. Mount Flushmore is going to be the 4 worst of something. I think it perfectly fits you and your persona, your aura, the worst of with Joe every week.
Great.
I'm going to get a graphic. I'm going to get the sound of a toilet flushing when we do this segment each week. But we're doing Mount Flushmore.
High-end quality over here with the flush.
This week,
I love it.
One of these weeks, if you're really good to me all week long, one of these weeks, I'm going to do a Mount Flushmore of sports media people. And I'll let you have a lot of fun with that one. But for this week's Mount Flushmore, I want you to give us the Mount Flushmore of all-time Buffalo Bills head coaches, which, again, if people don't understand this, basically Joe's going to say the 4 worst Bills head coaches of all time. Who you got on your Mount Flushmore?
All right. I would have to say, this is not in any particular order, so it's just 4 crap people.
Yep,
crap
they're all
sandwiches.
the same. One the same. Yep.
Dick Duran, you got to put him up there. The antithesis of mediocrity, boring,
and boredom. Just
boredom. 7-9, 7-9, 7-9, and then just the anxiety and just agita of. I'll always remember this. I was in Buffalo in 2008, and the season had just ended, and it was right around Christmas or New Year's, whatever the fuck. I'm in the Wegmans parking lot. I'm listening to WGR, and it was the season ended, and everyone was like, "Is Duran getting fired?" And this is when no one announced it from the Bills that he got extended, but it was one of those things where a reporter had it, maybe it was Schefter or someone said, "Oh, they extended him," and we're all like, "They gotta fire him! They gotta fire him!" And I'm listening to Show Up in the Bulldog, and I pull into the Wegmans parking lot. And then they just announced that he's coming back. And I was like, fuck. I hit the dashboard. I was like, that motherfucker's coming back. And I was so livid. I was angry shopping at Wegmans. I think I got a foot long or whatever and chips. I'm pissed off. But yeah, he was It was just
Yeah,
watching that era of like from 2006 to 2008, 9. It was such boring, terrible football. It was
fun.
not entertaining. It was, I mean, even, Greg Williams at least had the 2002 season where he had like Bledsoe was awesome. But yeah, that was awful. Number 2, like I got to go Rex Ryan.
Me too.
Rex Ryan inherited like an awesome defense.
Yeah.
And
he should have broke the drought. He had the talent to break the drought.
He had the talent, and if they had kept with Jim Schwartz and Greg Roman, we'll just say they hired Greg Roman as the OC and Jim Schwartz was the defense head coach, whatever the fuck, they would have broke the drought. And instead, this idiot comes in here, and it was he duped everyone, including me, where the evidence was there. Like, this guy didn't make the playoffs 5 straight years with the Jets, which was a record. Like, no coach had ever been a head coach of a football team that missed the playoffs 5 straight years. And it was there, and it was in my backyard, fucking here, like across the river from Queens. And like, it was there, the evidence was there. And I always blame Mike Pettin. Pettin fucked everything up because if he had just, when he got here and we assumed he had Rex's defense, the defense in 2013 I think it was, Doug Marrone's first year was great. It had like 1 trillion sacks, and it was like the same team coming back in 2015. So I was like, oh, it's just going to be like a glove. We're going to break out the old glove. And instead it was a disaster. He sucked. The defense gave out 1 trillion yards. Yep. I didn't find him very funny or anything like that. And he sucked. So put him on the fucking thing. And I can't, it's kind of crazy to me. He's been out of the league for almost a decade now. Like, he hasn't even gotten a defensive coordinator job, and he interviewed a couple different times, but put him on the list for me. Third, who was the guy? I didn't look this up because I was busy. Like I said, the guy who went like, I think it's Hank Bulla. He was like the idiot that was like, he went 2-14, and he went
had 2-10. He went 2-10 one season, and he went 2-7 in the other. He started out replacing someone, and then
he replaced Case Stevenson. Yeah,
he was 4-17. He was a coach over the course of 2 seasons, and he was 4-17. He sucked.
Yeah, he sucked.
And I got a story about him, but I'm gonna wait till after you give me your fourth.
Yeah, and he had the quote where it was like they lost the wind in their boats or something. I forgot. There's some terrible quote he had, but that was before my time, so I'm putting him on there.
Mm-hmm.
And fourth, I will have to go with Sean McDermott. No, I'm just kidding. I'm gonna go with.
It's a 3-horse race here. I know. 1 or 3 ways.
Yeah, it's between Doug Marrone, Greg Williams, and Mike Mularkey, I would say, right? Is that where you were going to go with the 3-way?
Actually, no, and I wouldn't pick any of them, but those are 3. Those are 3 for sure.
Okay, that's what I was. I mean, I guess I could put Case Stevenson up there. Maybe.
Chip in the comment section says Mularkey.
Mularkey, okay. That's yeah, he did quit on them.
Marrone.
So did Marrone. You know what? I'm going to give it to, I'm going to give it to Mike Mularkey. He quit, and he was stupid enough to cut Bledsoe, or maybe he was a part of it. He cut Bledsoe, and they shouldn't have done that because JP Lossman was definitely not fucking ready to be the man. And as you said, he quit. He also was kind of aloof, and he didn't do anything afterwards. I'm putting him on the list. He didn't do much for me.
I agreed with mine. I got Jerron. I got Rex Ryan.
Sure.
I got Hank Bulla. Case Stevenson was mine. Dude, Case Stevenson was he went 2-14, and then he started off 0-4 the next year before he finally got fired. Quick little Hank Bulla nugget here. Go on, like, Talking Buffalo, the YouTube channel. I had Will Wolford on before for an episode, and if you want to listen to the whole interview, it was awesome. But I remember clipping this because I thought, I was like, holy shit, I've never heard something like this before in my life. But if you go to the Talking Buffalo YouTube channel and you go into search and just type in Will Wolford, like a 3 or 4 minute clip. And he talks about in this clip, 1986, how much the players fucking hated Hank Bulla. And word got out to the players that if they were to lose in Tampa Bay, that he was going to get fired. And the players blew that game on purpose. They tanked the game. He literally says this. If you don't believe me, go back again and watch this clip. I could not believe that Will was telling me this. They literally, he said at halftime, some players were making plays, young players, and the veterans were like, we're going to fuck you up if you keep making plays. They were smoking cigarettes in the locker room at halftime and shit like that. And he literally said that once they found out that Ralph was going to fire Bulla if they lost that game, they lost in Tampa. They blew that game. He did get fired, and then Marv Levy ultimately became the next head coach. But his players purposely got him fired because they fucking hated Hank Bulla.
Yeah.
Wild story, man. But yeah,
that is a crazy story.
Yeah. So again, if anyone wants to actually listen to Will tell that story, go on our Talking Buffalo YouTube channel and just type in Will Wolford. You'll find that clip. All right. The second segment we're going to do each week, start, sit, and cut. Pretty self-explanatory. People know what that means. I'm going to throw you a bone here. I know you're a big Sopranos guy. You wanted to do a thing on them.
Yeah, we got an argument about that. I'm kind of glad you won that, to be honest with you.
Sopranos,
I didn't need any more research.
Yeah. Sopranos supporting characters. All right, so you're going to start one, you're going to sit one, and you're going to cut one. The Sopranos supporting characters, I got Christopher Moltisanti, Paulie Walnuts, and Silvio Dante. So you're going to start one, you're going to sit one, you're going to cut one before we get out of here.
Starting, definitely Chris Moltisanti. I thought he was an incredible character, and he had so many different layers to his character. He was emotional. You felt bad for him when he got whacked. Spoiler for everyone that's listening.
If you haven't watched it by now, I don't know
when Tony suffocated him after the car accident, he had you felt bad for him a little bit, even though he was a sociopath and a scumbag and all that shit. But he had a lot of layers to his story.
It was funny as hell too at times.
Sit him. So what does sit him mean? You're just gonna sit him?
It's like in the middle. Like you're all right, so you're gonna start this running back, you're gonna sit this one, and you're gonna cut this one. So the sit one's in the middle. So you got Christopher Moltisanti's your start. Who's your sit?
I would say Paulie Walnuts. Yeah, I mean, I like him. I mean, if we're doing like secondary characters, I would sit Paulie. I would sit Paulie Walnuts. I mean, he's I like him, and I like him more. It's more like I like him way more than I like Sil. Sil was all right, but Sil wasn't. There was never an episode when you think about when you watch that series. There was never really an episode about Silvio until like he became the boss for like the last season when Tony got shot. There was never like a subplot. You know, Paulie went to go like he went to go and talk to fucking. He went to the seance people where like he saw like the one guy saw the people that Paulie killed in the afterlife and all this shit, and then like the stuff with his mother and like with his, putting her in the rivalry with Ralph Cifaretto, and all that sort of stuff. Like he had more of a layers to his character, with still had some one-liners, and he just had like the like kind of like that.
I kind of like
Elvis. Yeah, that was his role, but like whatever. I could do that fucking role. You could do it too. You can just grimace and look ugly.
I like all three of them. It's not like I dislike any of them, but
you gave me three options.
No, well, that's the game.
You gave me three. Yeah, so I would have fucking cut Artie Bucco.
I would cut Paulie Walnuts. I don't know. Of all the characters on The Sopranos, the major ones, he's the one who felt the least organic to me. Like he almost felt kind of forced the way he acted and talked.
But the other one felt
a little more natural. One last Soprano little thing though. Then we got to bounce here.
Thank God.
My favorite episode ever. Maybe what was the funniest moment do you think of The Sopranos? And I know it's not a comedy by any means,
sure,
but there was certainly a lot of funny shit that happened on that show. Is there anything up? And I didn't ask you this ahead of time, but off the top of your head, is there any? It just popped in my mind. It was one of the funniest things, not only that I've seen on The Sopranos, but just TV period, especially a drama. Literally laughed my fucking ass off.
I bet you it's the same. Maybe it's the same thing we have. The Intervention.
Yeah. 100%.
Fucking great. Yeah, it was definitely
unbelievable.
Yeah, it was hilarious.
The way they just went around and insulted Christopher. They did not understand what an intervention is. And you talk about Silvio, and he talks about one day he come there and he puked in the toilet.
He's like, disgusting. No, Paulie started the whole thing. He goes, I don't write nothing down. He's like, I don't write nothing down. You're weak. You're embarrassment. You're out of control. You're an embarrassment to this family. And then
he says, I don't write nothing down. That is so mafia shit.
Yeah. Well, and then Christopher, I don't write nothing down. So when you send me your notes, I don't read anything either. That's why I'm like, fucking.
And then Christopher, when he snaps on all them too, man, that was fucking amazing. Yeah, that was the best episode
They're doing a next month, because I know you watch content to tweet about content. HBO, they have they're doing like a David Chase thing. I don't know if you saw that.
I heard about it.
Him creating the Sopranos, like a 2-episode series. They already have the trailer out, or 2 episodes.
That'd be cool.
That looks interesting. We'll see what happens. I still to this day am very annoyed that they never got back with the Russian guy in the Pine Woods or Pine Barrens episode, and they never closed that. And it was like I remember watching that show. I was like, when's he coming back? When's he coming back? And fucking never came back. But crazy that show's been off the air for like almost 20 years now. So makes you feel old.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's gonna do it for this episode. This was fun, man. I was a little.
Was it really?
I kind of like mixing it up there. It was okay. Thank you, everybody. Again, at the beginning, I'm kind of going through this emotional roller coaster, unpacking everything from a very.
I'm glad you shared that story. I'm glad you shared it.
Look, man, it was truly one of the best weekends I've had in a long time. I needed it. I didn't realize I needed it until it happened, and now I just feel completely different. Feel so much more fuller. Anyway. This
moves out Mafia Con. That was number one because you got to hang out with the bros and the reporters and the Bills bro beat. Like that's not number two.
This man is somehow to surpass that.
Yes.
I don't know about next week with Joe. We'll see. Like he just let the whole world know that he's not going to.
I can't. I'm in Cape May. There's no way I can do it with my wife there. I'm not bringing my computer down there. So my apologies. But after that, I'm here every day. I could preview the game on Monday. Just tell Marino he has to do it on fucking Sunday. For God's sake. I got clout. I've been here longer than he has.
Yeah, you have. All right, guys. I'll be back with a brand new episode tomorrow.